Hello friends, I am Arpit and I am here with today's analysis. Today is 20th of September and as we cover on most of the days, we are also going to cover three very important topics which are in news. The first topic which we are going to pick up in today's session is Prime Minister addressing the parliamentarians in the Central Hall. This Central Hall has a lot of memories attached with it. It was the Central Hall in which the Constitution was framed. The Constituent Assembly sat in this hall. It was the Central Hall where many heads of the states and heads of the government have addressed the parliamentarians collectively. It was this Central Hall in which many joint sessions of the Parliament have happened and 3 bills have been passed. And it is this Central Hall in which the President of India addresses the parliamentarians at the start of every Lok Sabha and at the start of every sessions largely. So a lot of memories attached with this Central Hall and fortunately the last session of this particular old parliament in this old parliament building also happened there, because after this address all the parliamentarians moved towards the new parliament building. Then the next topic which we are going to discuss is the Global Gender Gap Index. Per se this topic is not in news, but if I tell you that this has significance with our third topic which is in news, and that is the Women Reservation Bill in the Parliament and the legislative assemblies of the state. We are talking about giving 33% reservation to the women in the Parliament and state legislative assemblies, just like which we have given them in the panchayats and the urban local bodies. Now, this is not the first time this bill is being tabled. There is a historical perspective to it and we are only going to discuss the historical perspective. We are not going into the basic details of the bill, but yes, basic details will cover how much reservation is going to be given and up till what time this will be there. All these will cover. But, largely our focus will be on the historical perspective of this. Global Gender Gap Index. Why we were discussing this? Because Global Gender Gap Index assesses the gap between the males and the females. And this gap is measured on the basis of 4 parameters. These 4 parameters, first is political, I would say, association or participation in political activities by the females. This is the first parameter. Second parameter is participation in economic activities, males versus females. Access to healthcare services, males versus females. And educational attainment, males versus females. Now this gap is there, and according to this 2023 report, this gap will be filled in the next 131 years with the current pace of events or with the current pace of efforts which we are making right now. So political participation by women, which is one of the parameters over here, will definitely improve for India. It will improve India's ranking in the Global Gender Gap Index, this reservation bill. But most importantly, this reservation will strengthen the Nari Shakti in our country, will empower the women further. So, let's look into this. The Prime Minister of India addressed all the parliamentarians in the Central Hall of the old Parliament building. This address was significant because this was expectedly the last address in the old Parliament building, and from that Parliament building, all the parliamentarians moved towards or marched towards the new Parliament building. The Central Hall where this address was delivered has a lot of historical significance attached with it. The Constituent Assembly met in this Central Hall, which means our constitution was framed over here. Second of all, any joint session of the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, if it has to happen, that happens over here in the Central Hall. Any head of the state or any head of the government wants to come and address the parliamentarians, they address over here in the Central Hall. The President, if the President has to address the parliamentarians, because generally the President addresses the parliamentarians whenever a new government is formed or at the start of every session almost. That is done over here. So a lot of memories attached with this central hall, and another memory was again, penned down by this last speech of the Prime Minister in this central hall. The Prime Minister also said that this old Parliament building will now be termed as Samvidhan Sadan, means the Constitution House, because the Constitution was made over here. So let's look into the details of his speech. He talked about a lot of things. So first of all, we should understand that the day was the day of Ganesh Chaturthi, when we can say the last day in the old Parliament building and the first day in the new Parliament building. So it was strategically chosen. While ending his speech, the Prime Minister said that we are heading to the new Parliament building with this resolve and determination to transform India into a developed nation. We had taken this resolve last year, that is 2022, and we said that by 2047 we want to be a developed country. We had 25 years, from now we have 24 years. It is that Parliament which will make the laws and we will follow them to become a developed country. Now, memories of the Central Hall, we will pick up memories one by one, but we should understand that the Central Hall or the entire Parliament building, the old Parliament building now, Samvidhan Sadan, we should call it, was built by the Britishers. So when the Britishers were here, that is before 1947, it was used as a library. But when the Britishers left, our Constituent Assembly was formed. The Constitution took shape in this Central Hall, as the Constituent Assembly was formed over here, sat over here. He remembered that in this Central Hall, India's national flag and national anthem were adopted. Since 1952, about 41 heads of the states and governments from all over the world have addressed the Parliament of India in the Central Hall. Various presidents of India addressed the Central Hall 86 times, and he said that Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha since the last 7 decades have passed around 4,000 laws. Apart from it, in the Central Hall, joint sessions of the Parliament also used to take place. And since we have started our parliamentary journey, from then till now, we have only passed 3 bills in a joint session of the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. This particular information becomes important from the prelims point of view. The first is the Dowry Prohibition Act 1962. Second is the Banking Service Commission Bill, Repeal Bill 1978. And the third is Prevention of Terrorism Bill 2002. Then on Article 370, in 2019, the Government of India abrogated Article 370. Article 370, which did not allow the constitutional provisions to reach the Kashmiris, because they had their own constitution. But since, Article 370, which allowed them to have their own constitution, since Article 370 was abolished, the Indian constitution was applicable to them. And since then, all the development indicators in Jammu and Kashmir are at an all-time high, and terrorism indicators are at an all-time low. And this is what the Prime Minister said, that today Jammu and Kashmir is progressing on the path of peace and development, and its people do not wish to let opportunities slip out of their hands anymore. Then on India's economy, as we all know that India is the fastest growing major economy of the world. Every country in the world actually wants to join hands with India. And India, along with the world, is confident that we will be there in top 3. In 2014, we were at the 10th rank. Last year, that is 2022, we surpassed UK and became the 5th largest economy. And now we are aspiring to be the 3rd largest economy after USA and China by 2027-28. It is not only we who believe it, the world believes it, that India will be there. India's digital infrastructure, which has played a key role in India's development journey so far, is going to play a key role from here on also. The benefits have reached the poor, or I would say the benefits have reached the last mile, all because of our digital infrastructure. Governance has been easy, all because of digital infrastructure. Our lives have been easy, all because of this digital infrastructure. The world acknowledges this fact, and during this G20 summit, many countries, including some of the developed countries which are struggling in the digital transformation of their administration, sought help from India, and India agreed to help them as well. So that is basically one such crucial point in our development story. Then he also said that we need to work on a big canvas. The canvas is that slate on which we draw. Till now our canvas was small. The paintings, drawing, but okay. But if we have a big canvas and work on that big canvas, then we will make a big and beautiful drawing. Having said that, increased canvas or increased size of the canvas simply means that we need to take into picture or take into consideration maximum members of the society. Means we need to make people participate in economic activity more and more. Here, special focus should be on women. Women who are presently not working should also be working, and that is what the increased canvas means. Another interpretation of increased canvas can be that we should not focus on limited areas, we should focus on multiple areas simultaneously. Like we should focus on economic development, employment generation, sustainable development, environment conservation, safety and security. Then we should also focus on sanitation facilities, education, healthcare. Then only our canvas will be big, and everything is interconnected with each other. Then the painting which will come on that big canvas, that will look amazing. But if we focus on limited aspects, then we'll never be able to be there by 2047. Then on India's polity. On India's polity, he clearly said that the main role of the parliamentarians should be to repeal the outdated laws which are crippling the economy, which are crippling the society as well. And we should target for making more efficient new age laws, and that too in a timely manner. Then only our polity will be surviving and it will be efficient. It will be for the people. So we need to get rid of outdated laws. Highest priority should be accorded to the roots of Indian aspirations for every reform that is introduced in the parliament. Then on being Atmanirbhar. Atmanirbhar means self-reliance. Now many aspirants misinterpret this. The misinterpretation is that Atmanirbhar means you are cutting off from the world. It is not like that. Atmanirbhar means that you are becoming self-dependent, you are increasing your capacity. And why did this idea come to us of becoming Atmanirbhar? Because in the COVID years, we faced a lot of difficulties. We were dependent upon China for various, I would say, key products like active pharmaceutical ingredients, which were the raw material for the medicines. Semiconductor chips, which were, I would say, the input material for many things like vehicles, electronic products. In everyday life products, we use semiconductor chips nowadays. We could not get them from China. Reasons can be many for that. So we decided that we should develop our capacity and reduce our dependency on others. We should become more and more Atmanirbhar. Once we become Atmanirbhar, we will not only fulfill our aspirations, but we will supply this to the world. So Atmanirbharta does not mean that we are cutting off from the world. It simply means that we are integrating with the world in a better way, in a more, I would say, in a higher capacity we are integrating. That is Atmanirbhar Bharat's goal. So this needs to be understood, and he said that Atmanirbhar Bharat was very, very important, and it was being talked about by the entire world. He said, who will not want to be self-reliant in defense, manufacturing, energy and edible oil. This quest of becoming Atmanirbhar is not only India's quest, actually every country wants it. But only few will be able to do so who have the capacity. People need to be skillful, you need to have resources. If you don't have the resources, you need to have good relations with those countries which have those resources. So like for example, we did this partnership with Japan recently, in which Japan has the expertise of manufacturing semiconductor chips. We told Japan, you come here, establish your industry over here. We have the market, we have the skilled labor as well as cheap labor, and you make it over here, sell it over here, and sell it overseas also. So we become an important part in the global value chain of semiconductor chips. This will definitely make us Atmanirbhar, less reliant on other countries like China. Now on sustainable manufacturing. Manufacturing sector is one such sector which has the highest employment generation capacity. This manufacturing sector was largely, I would say, or less focused upon, not ignored, but less focused upon prior to 2014. In 2014, this Make in India campaign was launched. And now the Prime Minister is talking about zero defect, zero effect. Zero defect means high quality product, and zero effect simply means that zero effect on the environment. So I would say environment friendly production which is of high quality simply means zero defect, zero effect. We have to follow this. On education, the Prime Minister talked about the new education policy which has been universally accepted now. This new education policy was launched by the government in the year 2020. This new education policy not only focused upon the education at the school level but also at the higher level. At the school level, the main focus of this education policy was to increase or make better the learning outcomes. The learning outcomes presently are in shambles. Like for example, a class 5th student cannot do a simple subtraction of 2 digits which is taught in class 2. More than 50% of the students studying in class 5 cannot measure the length of a pencil by using a scale. This is an elementary activity which is taught in class 2. So the learning outcomes are poor. Main focus is on increasing the learning outcomes. For that, we have taken multiple steps. Like for example, for the first 5 years, that is nursery, lower KG, upper KG, first and second, we are focusing on play-based learning or toy-based learning. There are no books. This year starting, one Jadui Pitara was launched. Jadui Pitara is that curriculum framework, or I would say the study material for those initial 5 years. Play-based learning. Now this kind of learning models are followed in the Scandinavian countries and other Western countries also. Definitely this will contribute in enhancing the learning outcomes. Apart from it, we also have this target of achieving around 50% of gross enrollment ratio in higher education by 2035. And there is a special focus on research and development in the higher education. So we need to learn from it. Then during the G20 summit, Nalanda University was showcased to all the leaders. Nalanda University, which was, I would say, a high profile learning center around 1500 years ago. Now if we could do this 1500 years ago, we can definitely do it now. So this Nalanda University should act like an inspiration for us. Then on sports, said that it should be the pledge of the nation that on every sports podium there should be a tricolor. He is simply meaning that we need to excel more and more in sports. We need to win more Olympic medals. Our focus presently largely is on cricket. But yes, cricket should be there, but other countries or other games also should be focused upon. And he said that people from tier 2 and tier 3 cities should be participating more and more in the sports. Then only we will see equitable participation in this domain. On social justice. Now social justice is basically justice in the society. In the society there are various kinds of people. Ultra rich, rich, middle class, poor, ultra poor. So social justice will be there when last mile, this means ultra poor, poorest of the poor, is having access to the benefits. More poorer you are, more benefits you get. That is social justice. This is the concept of equity also. He said that we need to broaden the aspect, or we need to broaden the concept of social justice. We should not only be focusing upon providing the benefits, more and more benefits to the poorest. Okay, benefits should be provided, but we should also be thinking about providing that poorest of the poor with good housing facilities, clean drinking water, clean cooking gas, education, healthcare. Overall development should happen. And hence here also what he meant to say was broaden the canvas. If all those aspects will be fulfilled for the poorest of the poor, for the last mile, then automatically our society will be developed society. He was also talking about the regional disparities. Now generally there is a conception, and he mentioned that conception also, that the eastern part of India is less developed than the western part of India, means western part of India is more developed than eastern part of India. There are few reasons for that. Like in eastern India, there have been very high level of political instabilities, like insurgency in northeast was there, Naxalism was there, then huge influx of refugees in the late 1960s from the erstwhile East Pakistan, which is now Bangladesh. Densely populated region, that is. Green Revolution did not come. Green Revolution came here in Punjab, Haryana and Western UP. Cities like Bombay, states like Haryana, Punjab and Gujarat, they are there in western side. All are rich states. So there has been a disbalance, or I would say a mismatch between western part of India and eastern part of India. Western part of India is more developed and eastern part is less developed. So what he meant to say that people in eastern part are devoid of social justice. We need to bring them at par with the people in western India. And for that, government is taking all the efforts. Then on India's global image and outlook, the entire world is looking towards India, and why shouldn't it look towards India? India is the fastest growing economy. India is the youngest country. India has the highest youthful population. India has cheap labor. India has rich cultural heritage. India has it all. India has a, super fast growing economy as of now, I would say. Good digital infrastructure India has. That is why all the countries of the world are looking towards India. Some of the noted personalities of the, I would say, business class, they have termed India as the winner of this 21st century. The big story of this 21st century is going to be India. India earlier was considered to be a neutral country in the Cold War period, when the world was divided between USSR, that is socialist USSR on one side, and capitalist USA on the other side. Then now we have earned this tag of becoming a Vishwamitra. We are friend of everyone. Then we are presently reaping the benefits of such a foreign policy of becoming Vishwamitra with other countries, or with all the countries, I would say. G20 summit, it fulfilled the needs of the global south. Global south is basically the developing and underdeveloped countries of Asia, Africa and South America. And by including African Union in the G20 as a permanent member, we have proved this. He also said that the seeds planted by the G20 summit will turn into a huge banyan tree of trust for the world, because the outcomes of this summit were accepted with consensus. Even the Russian president recently was quoted as, praising India for its successful completion or hosting the G20 summit. Whatever was adopted was for the good of one and all, and that is why correctly this tag of Vishwamitra is there with us. He also talked about the biofuel alliance which India initiated. India not being the largest producer of biofuels in the world, but yes, we initiated this alliance, and he said that the world is now moving towards biofuels and India is leading them. Why India is leading them? India is not the leading producer of biofuels, but yes, India took this initiative and formed this alliance. So this was his speech in the old Parliament building. From after this speech, they moved on to the new parliament building. He also requested that the old parliament building be named as Samvidhan Sadan. Now, the Global Gender Gap Index. It is released annually by the World Economic Forum. It assesses the gap between the males and the females. Yes, the gap is like this. Males are more privileged all over the world as compared to the females. Now, according to the Global Gender Gap Index 2023, it will take 131 years to fill this gap and make males and females at par. Isn't it disturbing? It is. Where is India placed on this? India ranked 127 out of 146 countries. Rank is not so good. If I compare India's rank with our neighbors, Pakistan is only behind us, rest of the neighbors are ahead of us. Now, what parameters are considered in this Global Gender Gap Index? There are 4 parameters which are considered in this Global Gender Gap Index. The first parameter is educational attainment, males versus females. The second is economic participation, males versus females. The third is access to healthcare services, males versus females. And the fourth is political participation, males versus females. Now, political participation in India is low of the females. Like the present parliament has only 15% seats occupied by the females. The recent, Women Reservation Bill, the 108th Constitutional Amendment Bill, which has been tabled by the government today in the Parliament, will definitely improve our ranking over here in the Global Gender Gap Index. That is why this has significance attached with the Reservation Bill for women in the Parliament and state legislative assemblies. So let us look into the details of this Global Gender Gap Index. India was ranked 127 out of 146. In this annual Gender Gap Report 2023, it is released by none other than World Economic Forum. Now, this year's rank is 127 out of 146. Let us look into the rank of India in the past 2 years. 2022, 146 countries were there and 135 out of 146. This year, 127 out of 146 means an improvement in the rank. These are the 4 parameters: political empowerment, economic participation and opportunity, educational attainment, and fourth is health and survival. On these parameters, how India performed and what was the score of India. You see the score of 0.629. More it is closer to 1, it is more gender parity. More it is closer to 0, there is more disparity. 2021, 156 countries were there. 140 was the rank of India out of 156 countries and ranking on these parameters. So, this was there. India's ranking has not been so good in this because, India has been struggling on political participation, economic participation, educational attainment, almost all these parameters. Now, when I talk about, how it is calculated, we look a little bit deep into all these 4 parameters. Now, the first is economic participation and opportunities. Here we calculate on the basis of estimated earned income, wage equality for similar work, legislators, senior officials or managers, how many these positions are held by females, professionals and technical workers, how many are professionals and technical workers, and labor force participation rate, how many females are there, how many males are there. So we look into this. Then when I talk about educational attainment, primary, secondary, tertiary education enrollment, what is the enrollment status on these levels, and literacy rate. Literacy rate, is revealed by the census every 10 years. Till now, the female literacy rate has never been above the male literacy rate in India, in any census so far. This is the fact worth remembering. Then next is health and survival, sex ratio at birth. Sex ratio is number of females per 1000 males. Healthy life expectancy. Life expectancy is basically the average amount of years one can expect his or her life. And females have higher life expectancy as compared to males. This is a universal phenomenon. All across the world, females live longer than males. Like for example, in India, the life expectancy rate overall was 67-68 years according to the 2011 census. Life expectancy rate for females 71-72 years, for males around 65-66 years. So here they have an advantage over males. Political empowerment, years with female, male head of the state. Female head of the state in India, there have been only 2 female presidents so far. Mrs. Pratibha Patil earlier and now Srimati Draupadi Murmu. When I talk about the Prime Minister, only 1 female Prime Minister till now, Srimati Indira Gandhi. Then women in ministerial positions, there have been many women in ministerial positions. Presently Nirmala Sitharaman ji, she is the Finance Minister. Then women in the Parliament, India has roughly around 15% women in the Parliament, which is less. Now India's suggestion to the World Economic Forum was that you should also consider the women participating in the grassroots level politics, that is panchayat level and the urban local bodies. There we have given reservation, 33% reservation to women already. That was given by the 73rd and 74th Amendment Act. And World Economic Forum does not recognize that. If it would have recognized that, then India's ranking should have been better. But now with the passage of this women reservation bill, India can expect to better its ranking over here. Now the index, these 4 parameters are there. Then on each of these sub indices as well as on the overall index, the global gender gap index provides scores between 0 and 1. We already saw the scores. 1 shows full gender parity and 0 is complete imparity. Now gender parity is not recovering according to this year's report, and it will take another 131 years to bridge this gap and bring parity. 131 years from now, according to the level of efforts we are making presently. So it can be less than this 31 years. It can be more than this also if patriarchy dominates us. Now the next is the 2023 report's finding. According to the report, India has attained parity in enrollment across all levels of education. This is good. 64.3% of the overall gender gap has been closed by India, means around 36%, 35-36% is still pending. Then India has reached only 36.7% parity on economic participation, 25.3% parity on political participation. 15.1% of the parliamentarians are women only. Okay. And this is the highest ever, but still in itself it is less. When I talk about India's neighbors, Pakistan at 142, this is the only neighbor which is behind us. Rest are ahead of us. Bangladesh 59, China 107, Nepal at 116, Sri Lanka at 115 and Bhutan at 103. When I talk about rank 1, it is Iceland. It is the most gender equal country and it is holding this position, that is rank 1, since the last 14 years. This is the 14th consecutive year when Iceland has been labelled as number 1. Now India has bridged 64.3% of the overall gender gap. Iceland has bridged 90%. Only 10% is left. Overall, the Southern Asian region has achieved 63.4% gender parity. Southern Asian region comprises of Pakistan, Afghanistan, Nepal, India, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka and Maldives, these 8 countries. Now this global gender gap index has divided the entire earth into various regions. 8 such regions are there, and this Southern Asian region where India is ranking 7th out of 8. Thankfully it is not the last, but hopefully it has to be there in top 3 at least in the times to come. Which is the last? Last is the MENA region. MENA is Middle East and North Africa. Now conflict ridden, political instability, and when there is a conflict, at the receiving end of the conflict are the females. That is why it is there, and it is also, a patriarchy dominated region. The much talked about women reservation bill. The historical perspective of this bill is that this bill is not being introduced in the parliament for the very first time. It was introduced for the very first time for reservation in parliament and legislative assemblies in 1996 by the H.D. Devegowda government. However, there are claims that Rajiv Gandhi introduced it for the very first time. Actually, Rajiv Gandhi introduced this bill for women reservation for the urban local bodies and the panchayats in 1988-89, not for parliament and legislative assemblies. This bill provides 33% reservation to women in the parliament as well as in the state legislative assemblies, just like 33% reservation is there with women in the panchayats and the urban local bodies. This reservation is going to be extended till 15 years from now. This bill has been introduced many a times. The first time, as I told you, was 1996 by the H.D. Devegowda government. After that, the Atal Bihari Vajpayee government also tried to do it, but it was faced with stern opposition from its coalition members only. After that, the UPA government, which was in power from 2004 till 2014, also tried the same, but again, they were faced with opposition from their coalition partners. Even some members of the cabinet also opposed it. The BJP had mentioned about this bill in its election manifesto of 2014 as well as 2019. Now they are fulfilling their election promises by introducing this bill. This bill has been introduced as the 108th Constitutional Amendment Bill. The good part is that this time there is no coalition as such. There is a coalition, the NDA coalition is there, but BJP in itself has majority. So with this political stability in hand, hopefully this bill will get passed. So let's look into the details. The Union Cabinet cleared the Women's Reservation Bill. It is tabled as the 108th Constitutional Amendment Bill 2023. What are the basic provisions of this bill? 33% quota to women in parliament and state legislatures will be given for a period of 15 years. Is this bill being tabled for the first time? This bill was stuck for 27 years. It's likely to be tabled on the ongoing special session of the parliament in the coming days, and today it has been labelled. Now let's see the timeline of this. 1996, it was introduced as the 81st Amendment Bill. It was aiming to reserve 1/3 of the seats for women in parliament and state legislatures for 15 years, and it was referred to a joint committee. Largely the provisions of this bill which are there and this bill which was there are same. The joint committee went one step ahead and said that minimum 33% reservation should be given. Uske upar, above that, more parliamentarians, if there are women, they can be. But minimum 33% should be there. But this bill lapsed because the current government ceased to exist. Then 1998 to 2004, the BJP-led NDA government was there. They also tried multiple times to get this bill passed, but failed due to opposition from coalition partners and others. Then 2004 to 2014, Indian National Congress led UPA government. In 2008, they introduced the bill in Rajya Sabha. Now when they introduced the bill in Rajya Sabha, it was passed by the Rajya Sabha, but Lok Sabha could not pass this bill. And since Lok Sabha could not pass this bill was lapsed because Lok Sabha in 2009 was dissolved. In their second stint, it was not introduced by the UPA government from 2009 till 14. Now BJP took this up as an electoral, I would say, agenda. It was there in the election manifesto of BJP in 2014 as well as 2019. So BJP-led NDA government in its first tenure from 2014 till 19 did not introduce this bill, but yes, now in its second tenure, when it is going to end, this bill is introduced in the parliament. And what a day to introduce it! It was the first day of the new parliament. If this bill gets passed, high chances are there I just hope that it becomes lucky for the country. First day of the new parliament, Nari Shakti is being made more powerful. Nari Shakti is being given wings, more and more participation of women in, I would say, the political processes. Now, presently we have around 15% parliamentarians as women. When I talk about how many women contestants were there were more than 700 women contestants in the last, general elections of 2019. But only 15% are there holding the positions. When I talk about the voters, more female voters are there as compared to male voters in 2019. So why shouldn't they be represented? This bill will prove to be the game changer for women empowerment in India if it is implemented in its true form and sense. Actually, you might be thinking that, sir, it is implemented at the grassroots level. So are women truly empowered over there? Actually, their positions is better as compared to the past. But yes, there are institutions like the Sarpanch Pati, which have emerged. Sarpanch Pati, basically that particular seat is reserved for the female candidate. That female candidate contests and becomes the Sarpanch. But she is the Sarpanch for the namesake. Her husband takes over all her duties and acts like the actual Sarpanch. Many of you might have seen that series Panchayat, in which that lady Neena Gupta was the actual Sarpanch. But the exact role of Sarpanch was being played by Sarpanch Ji, Mr. Raghubir Yadav. That is the dark reality also. So giving 33% reservation at the grassroots level has not empowered the women to that extent. Let's see how this does. Let's be hopeful that MP Pati or MLA Pati, these kind of institutions do not develop or do not emerge in India. Patriarchy dominating here. Don't let patriarchy dominate there. Now, why the bill has not been passed yet? Political differences among the coalition members, as we have discussed. Now, during the UPA tenure, not only there was differences among the coalition members, there were differences among the cabinet members also. So that made it difficult for the bill to be passed. Obviously, it would be difficult, very difficult. Then, less women parliamentarians were there. This itself became the reason for this bill not to be passed. Let's suppose a situation where more women parliamentarians would have been there. It would have been comparatively easy for this bill to get passed. Lack of political will. I would clearly say that this was lacking, because if this would have been there, then already it would have been passed. 27 years is a big time. And the last and the underlying factor is the patriarchal mindset. Patriarchal mindset is basically derived from patriarchy. Patriarchy is a male dominated system. Males dominate in almost all the aspects of life, whether it be political, economic, social, cultural. So that patriarchal mindset might also be a roadblock in this bill to get passed. But now, hopefully, with a stable government in the center, this bill should be passed. And institutions like MP Pati or MLA Pati should not emerge. The basic details of the bill, the criticisms of the bill, the analysis of the bill, I'll be coming up with all this in the times to come. Let it, get passed, let it settle down, let opinions come about it. Then only I will be discussing about it. But as of now, it is important for you to know the historical perspective of this bill, which has been taught to you just now. And this is it from today's session. I will be meeting you tomorrow with some more important stuff. And I will be discussing again the most important news pieces which are there in news. Till then, keep studying, keep reading, keep writing, and most importantly, keep revising. Jai Hind, take care, namaste.